right, I'm going to turn it over now to Becca Whitlow. She's the secretary for the Hymn Society. Thanks, Becca.
Thanks, Stephen. Yes, I am greatly honored to be here as the secretary of the executive committee and to welcome you to this featured session, which is going to focus on the singing part of our theme, why we sing the song, the singer, the singing. Just a reminder that you're not able to be seen or heard in this session, but you can make comments or ask questions through the chat or on the Q&A features. And questions will be monitored throughout the session, and then DJ is gonna he wants you to send them as we go, and then is going to leave about 15 or 20 minutes at the end to answer some questions. A word or two about DJ Bulls. DJ is a composer and arranger with almost 2 decades of ministry experience centered on worship, music, and communication. He is currently pursuing a doctorate in church music and hymnody at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, where his research specialties are hymnody, congregational singing, and restoration hymnody. Through his work with Bulls Pen Music and fearlessforyou.com, his arrangements are known and sung across the United States and around the world. He's also the founder, artistic director, and conductor of the Mid-Cities Chamber Singers, a semi-professional choral ensemble in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and is the chair of the Timeless Hymnal Committee. So without further ado, I'm very happy to welcome DJ, who is speaking to us about resources and ideas for A Cappella Sunday.
All right. Thank you, Becca. Good to have everyone with us. We know we'll have folks coming and going throughout the course of our time, but it's great to be with you. Hope everyone is well and healthy wherever you are in this crazy season of life that we're all experiencing together. So we're going to be juggling some media here. So we're going to be sharing screens and other things over the course of our time together. As Becca said, I would love to have your questions as we go. And then near the end of our time together, as we see the questions, as we kind of feel how things are going, and your questions that you have will allow some time at the end. And I'll say this here as well. And let me go ahead and share the old screen. And I'm not going to put this on, full screen play. And if you have issues seeing it, just let me know and I can make it bigger for you. Singing a cappella beyond A Cappella Sunday. Let me introduce my 2 colleagues who are going to be jumping in here a couple of times in the course of our presentation. Dr. Randy Gill is a professor at Lipscomb University in Nashville and a longtime composer, worship leader, works with churches, trains worship leaders. He's been a choral director at Pepperdine University and at Rochester University and at Lipscomb University, in addition to a long time working with churches. Shane Kaufman in Tulsa, Oklahoma, has been the worship minister for the Memorial Drive Church of Christ for a number of years. And both of these guys I am blessed to count as dear friends and colleagues in Fearless for You Music, which is the label, the website, the publishing moniker that the 3 of us work together with. So, we're going to just dive right in here and talk about resourcing your church for singing a cappella beyond just A Cappella Sunday. I want to just give a few things by way of introduction and sort of disclaimers here on the front end. There are lots of composers and people out there who talk about and who arrange a cappella music. There are some music theorists who compose or arrange for a living. But sometimes those folks don't work in the trenches with churches and congregations Sunday after Sunday, week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade. And one of the things I love about Randy and Shane is all 3 of us have a deep, deep and abiding love for the church. and we are in the trenches with so many of you every Sunday, serving churches. The three of us, we didn't set out, in a meeting, years ago and say, if we were to combine our talents, we could come up with, a clearinghouse of authoritative arrangements and resources. That wasn't the way sort of this happened. God has given us a pretty amazing opportunity through our arranging of music, each for our local congregations. And out of that has come opportunities for us to share those with the kingdom at large. And so that's a real blessing. And that's sort of how Fearless for You started. Randy and I were sitting on a bus outside the Roosevelt Chapel on the campus of the University of Chicago at an American Choral Directors Association convention. A number of years ago, 2010 or 2011, we had just heard the St. Olaf Choir give a breathtaking performance. And that was sort of something that pushed us to say, you know what, we got to get some of this stuff out to a broader audience. And that was the beginning of Fearless. A year later, we hosted our first new music conference in Atlanta, Georgia, where we would be today, ironically, if it weren't for the COVID-19 crisis that we're all experiencing. And we've done a conference every year, sometimes multiple times a year, all across the country, on the West Coast, in Texas and in Georgia and in Nashville. And so that's an important part of our ministry with Fearless for You. Every one of you in this session, and however many churches there are represented among us, that would be however many different styles of music and our approaches to music in worship. Each congregation that each of you represent has its own individual uniqueness, its own uniquely gifted singers and leaders and players and congregants. You have a set of talents at your place that's unlike any other congregation. And there are lots of things that make us diverse and different. But one of the things that is universal among all of us is the voice. Every one of our churches has voices to use. And I think that is such a beautiful picture of the unity of the body of Christ, the singing of believers. And to take that one step further, if we were to go around and have everybody play a clip of what you might identify as your unique style or the sound that is unique to your congregation, I think it would be just as unique and just as diverse, just some incredibly diverse things that represent Christ's body, the church. But our voices, for all the bounty of unique gifts and talents and sounds, every one of us has the God-given instrument of the voice, and those voices are unique as your fingerprints, right? Only you have that. Only your congregation has that unique combination of human voices, and I want to just celebrate that as we talk about this today, and we're celebrating that at this conference at large. So by way of introduction to the three of our background, I want to give just a couple of real short disclaimers, and then we'll get on with it. I have spent my entire life in Churches of Christ. We come out of the Stone Campbell, or you may have heard it referred to as the American Restoration movement. We have common roots with Disciples of Christ and independent Christian churches. And I know that Churches of Christ have not always done their part to participate in broader Christian conversations. We always haven't been as participatory as we like, and I know that sometimes we haven't been in fellowship with other folks as well. And there are still a fair number of our congregations that are extremely conservative when it comes to the practice that they appropriate in worship and in their theology. I also know that it only takes, one bad apple to sort of give a black eye to an entire group of people. And so I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to speak and interact with you and participate in this society on so many levels. But I hope that in our conversation today and in the other interactions maybe we've had in the past or that will come in the future, that we can mend some of those fences as being those crazy people from that tradition, the moniker that makes me crazy when people says, oh, you go to a Church of Christ, y'all are the ones who don't have any music, right? Yeah, and that makes me crazy. So I hope that we can mend some fences and be better participants in the importance of this broader Christian community. I want to come back to that phrase right there, y'all. Oh, when somebody asks you or you encounter, or in my experience, hey, what church do you go to? Oh, you're Church of Christ. Y'all are the ones who don't have any music. That comment saddens me. It makes me mad because I love the heritage of singing in our history. When somebody asks me that question and they make that comment, it points to how shallow some of our folks have been in how they've represented what we do in our congregations. They think it's something that can be reduced to that gross oversimplification. Oh, y'all don't have any music. Instead of thinking about a cappella singing in worship as an incredibly positive, beautiful aesthetic choice that's couched in positive scriptural light, and instead of a sort of a negative regulatory shadow. And so I want to be as positive as I can about this. But every individual church makes its own decisions because there's no denominational hierarchy when it comes to thinking about how we sing or how our churches participate or sing a cappella. But it's such a unique opportunity for our churches, and it provides an opportunity that's so simple and so authentic in participating with just the voices. And as many of you are experiencing in your own circles, we are seeing a new generation of worshipers becoming endeared to the practice of singing a cappella. I remember hearing a couple of years ago when I heard and saw the immediate reception and embrace of this new thing called A Cappella Sunday. Having been in Churches of Christ my entire life, there are things that I have taken for granted about our practice. And so it's given me an opportunity to reflect and think about what there might be to offer for a broader group of people about this practice that we've done for a long, long time. And so that is sort of all the background of what's leading into this conversation. Let me start by saying that February 21st, that's the first Sunday in Lent 2021, God willing and virus willing and lessened restrictions on singing willing, that will be the next a cappella Sunday. And so that's sort of the next big, calendar piece for when a lot of churches will think about doing something a cappella in their worship. But between now and then, what I hope that will come from our time together today is that maybe you will be encouraged or emboldened, as the case may be, to try some more a cappella practices as a regular piece of sort of the quiver from which you pull your arrows to plan worship wherever you are. So with Randy and Shane being with us this morning, we want to sort of invite you into a conversation of our experience in taking music from popular Christian circles, whether that's contemporary Christian circles, whether that's praise and worship circles, whether that's global worship, whether that's new modern hymns or hymns that came out of the New English Renaissance, from wherever along the musical spectrum they may come. The three of us and others have found ourselves in a position to do a lot of arranging and preparing music for congregations to use in their worship. So in our audiences, in churches of Christ, there is still a high probability, since most of our churches are rural and under the size of 150 members, it's very likely that more than half of the people in the pews of our congregations may have never heard the original version of a song that we put before them to sing, or that we put before them to learn. So, like for us in the room here, when we get to the end of that first verse on a song like 10,000 Reasons, in our brain, we hear the drum with the two thumps at the end of that phrase. The congregation doesn't hear that. And so we're faced with a challenge like that of what do we do with this empty space? How do we bring in music to our churches that originated in instrumental form? And how do we make those decisions as to, is this singable? Is this a cappellable? You'll hear us use words like that. So what we've learned, and Randy and Shane, feel free to unmute here and invite you guys to join in on the conversation. Some of the questions that we ask when it comes to including a song in worship is, what are the original versions? Do they translate well from instrumental to a cappella? Is it a cappellable? Does this square peg fit in this round hole? We're faced with these challenges time and time again. Shane and Randy, let me give you guys just a quick second to reflect on congregationality and acapellability. We use those words like they're part of our normal vocabulary, don't we?
Yeah, we certainly do. It's something that we think about every time we hear a new song. And inevitably somebody in the congregation will say, hey, you have got to hear this new song.
We lost you there, Randy. We lost your audio.
Here we go. What I was saying
that.
was, you'll often have somebody from the congregation come up and say, hey, I just heard this great new song by Gateway or Carrie Job or somebody like that, and we have got to be singing this in our church. And you'll realize as soon as you hear the song, there are too many big gaps in here, or it relies too much on the instrumentation, or the rhythms are too complicated. It's just not congregational, and it's certainly not a cappellable.
Absolutely. Shane, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just a lot of the choices that are made when a song is originally written with just, guitar or piano or whatever in mind, don't necessarily translate well to a cappella, and that makes our job a little bit more difficult. We'll talk later, but I mean, octave jumps, when we're trying to write parts that fit certain vocal ranges, the octave jumps that are very popular become problematic. The first inversions can be unstable chords for a cappella. So there's just a lot of, as Randy mentioned, the long breaks, just a lot of obstacles. It's a nice obstacle course to turn these songs into a cappella sometimes.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And we're going to walk through a number of examples to talk about that as we get into a little bit later. We're also faced with the challenge of thinking, whenever we do an arrangement, we try to consider the original intent and the original integrity of a song that the composer or the original performer had. I can tell you that for me and for each of these guys, one of the things that we seek to aspire to with any arrangement we do is that you can lay that a cappella version, relatively speaking, right on top of the instrumental version, and it translates well. It's you don't want to create worship whiplash for your congregation, and it's like, well, I saw that we were singing that 10,000 Reasons song today, but did we sing that? Because what we sang in worship was nothing like what I heard on the radio, And so if that happens, then we haven't done our job very well. And that also is something for churches and for worshipers who are in congregations that have both a cappella and or instrumental settings, and those do exist in our churches. You may not know that if you only know a certain section about Churches of Christ, but there are a growing number of churches that worship in multiple services or have even blended services between a cappella and instrumental. And when you have those situations, especially, you're trying to navigate the waters of, okay, how can someone who goes to both of our services sing these songs and not feel like they're singing two different, libraries or two different catalogs of songs in their worship experience?
That presents some arranging challenges too, because so many contemporary songs have parallel movement in it. So you'll have a 4 chord going to a 5 chord, going to a 6 chord, and your melody is ascending. And so anybody who's ever taken theory in college is presented with the old parallel octaves and fifths dilemma.
With these guys.
Yeah, sometimes they'll go ahead and change the chord to solve that part writing problem. But in changing the chord, it changes the nature of the song as well. So it's a really tricky balance.
It is. And you have that challenge as well as the challenge of what I call the Toad Suck Church of Christ principle. You want to make that song that you're arranging singable for the least talented singing church that exists. And there's a little tiny town in Arkansas that's called Toad Suck, and this is not a referendum on the quality of singing at if there even is one, Toad Suck Church of Christ, or whatever name you want to put there. But you want to make your song accessible to any congregation of any flavor, of any level of singing talent. And so when we're thinking about how these are voiced, how these songs are arranged for part writing, all these things we want to be accessible to anyone and everyone. And yes, Wes says he's been to Toad Suck. Maybe you can offer us a follow-up session on the quality of singing in Toad Suck, Arkansas. There's your abstract for next year, Wes. If you can still see my screen, can you guys still see the slides here? Okay. Good. I want to talk about the CCLI Top 100 for a moment. So I'm gonna scroll through these lists pretty quickly, and again, if you stay through till the end, you'll find a way. I'll send you copies of all this stuff. This is from this morning. I pulled this list down about 5 o'clock this morning because I woke up way too early thinking about everything for today and wanting to rewrite a lot of things. But we're going to look at this list, and you'll see 2 colors. You'll see a yellow color, and that represents a song that has found a unique niche in our congregations. That may be something that you would look at and think, wow, I would have never thought that would be a cappella. Maybe it's like that. But you'll also see a blue color. That blue color represents any song that has a hymnic form, roots, style, or maybe it is an actual hymn. It Is Well With My Soul is on this list. Or it could be a song that borrows music, lyrics, or even a phrase or thought from a hymn. So here's the first 40 of the top 100 as of today. And you're looking at these probably guys and gals from your perspective and thinking, okay, why does this Church of Christ whack job consider some of these songs to be hymnic in form? Well, one of the things that we're going to talk about and see in sort of a recurring pattern of successful songs that translate to a cappella is that when you remove the instrumental foundation of a song, you've gotten rid of the silences, you've gotten rid of awkward interludes, you've gotten rid of solo breaks or drum breaks or any of those turnarounds that you experience in an instrumental form, and you're left with verses and choruses and an occasional bridge. They have bridges in music still, right, guys? That's a joke. When you remove all of that stuff and you're left with the core of a song, it sounds a lot different. And so a song that might have been an anthem, for example, 10,000 Reasons, while it is still very much an anthem, it has a hymn feel in places. It's a chorus and a verse, and it's repeated, and it's somewhat strophic. And so some of these things have a hymnic feel. So Living Hope, This Is Amazing Grace, Blessed Be Your Name, those are just 3 on these lists of this first 40 songs that have really taken off and found great use among churches in a cappella settings. And you think, okay, well, This Is Amazing Grace, that's a song with a driving rhythm, a driving bass line. Well, as one of the principles we're going to talk about is when you have a song that you create this counterpoint and interplay between men's and women's voices, it creates instant connection, instant engagement in a part of the song that maybe might have had, an instrumental 2-bar break between phrases. And so we'll talk about some more of that in a minute. The rest of these titles are probably not surprising. Amazing Grace, My Chains Are Gone, How Great Thou Art, How Deep the Father's Love, How Great Is Our God, In Christ Alone. Those titles, Oh Praise the Name, among newer ones on that list. The next 40, Jesus Messiah and Everlasting God. Again, 2 more songs that have found a unique home, surrounded by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other hymnic or pieces of hymns embedded within. I highlighted Build Your Kingdom here, the Wren Collective anthem. So a lot of times when you're dealing with an a cappella context, you struggle to find fast energy songs. It is a constant search and battle to try to find fast songs to bring energy to your a cappella context, because there just aren't a lot. It's like 3-to-1 ballad slow song to fast song ratio, if not even a wider disparity than that. But Build Your Kingdom here, it's verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, just like it looks on the page, like it could have been in your grandmother's hymnal. But it's an energy song that's found a great home. And here's the last slide. I find it so interesting that Victory in Jesus, Eugene Bartlett, is still in the CCLI Top 100. There's It Is Well, Behold Our God, Before the Throne of God Above, that Charity Bancroft text that sort of reemerged in the late 90s. Thank goodness. What a great hymn. And if you're looking through this list and you look at it and some things you notice, you say, wow, number 73, really? Give Thanks from 1978 is still on the CCLI Top 100. Wow. Victory in Jesus. Wow. How Great Thou Art. Really? Shout to the Lord. It's been on the CCLI list since CCLI was invented, and was on there for like 7 years or something like that in the top 25. But 23 of these top 100 of this morning have some connection to a hymn. Maybe it's lyrics, maybe it's melodic. I don't think that's a surprise to any of us, because we're experiencing that pendulum shift with a return to interest in hymns, to simple hymnic forms. As we all experience, we want more participation in our churches. And so songwriters and this explosion of hymns we're experiencing now, from Getty, Town End, Sovereign Grace, Bob Coughlin, Jordan Coughlin, Matt Boswell, Matt Papa, Matt Merker, all of these composers are writing things that are instantly singable. Did you guys realize that there were that many that still have hymnic connections on the top 100? It didn't occur to me that it was still quite that many. Well, let's get into talking about some of these actual songs. And so we're going to do this and sort of go on a little journey here through our Church of Christ harmonic history. And questions we're asking, and these are questions that were also posted on the Hymn Society Facebook group page. And I really appreciate those of you who participated in that, or even who continue to participate and submit your answers in the chat. I appreciate that. But when you take an instrumentally conceived song and do it a cappella, it can be an incredible transformation. Sometimes it works well. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it is Dudsville. Not everything is a cappellable. Sometimes we have tried to make things a cappellable that we should have just left alone. And we learn from those mistakes and try to pick up and grow from that. Here are some of your questions that you were asking. How do you know if it's going to work? I don't want to bite off having to teach part singing. I teach 7th grade choir 5 days a week. The last thing I want to do on weekends is come in and teach my church by rote how to sing a melody. I don't want to bite that off. Or even the response of, we don't do a cappella, or what is this strange language that you speak? It's kind of like Ricky Bobby in Talladega Nights. What do I do with my hands when you hold the microphone in front of my face for an interview? I don't know how to handle myself in this circumstance. Some of you thinking about that and thinking about a cappella, these are some of your responses to, what it is that keeps you from doing more in your gatherings, everything from just fear to lack of participation. You've never done it. We're not singing anything right now because we're not together. What do we tell our orchestra people? Are they going to go, run around on us and find another church to play when we give them that Sunday off? We don't want to lose our players. I get that. I'm scared. What are we going to do? And so we think about this from the beginning of our experience, and we look at sort of the history of the last 60 or 75 years, and I'm just going to kind of walk through this, kind of what's happened in our churches. So we grew up in Churches of Christ singing harmony. We spent time learning the songs, working out the harmony in our congregations, not necessarily in a summer singing school where you went off to, Ben Spear camp in Nashville, which is still going on, the Stamps Baxter camps, or the singing schools that were so popular in the earlier part of the century. But it was just normal in Churches of Christ. If you were singing in church, you were going to learn a part. I have very fond memories of my grandmother singing the alto part to "I Come to the Garden Alone," and looking at the hymnal and figuring out, okay, what's my part in this? Or maybe as kids, we were asked, okay, we want you to get up and lead a song. And so we have to work that out and figure out, what this means for us. But up until the 50s and 60s, probably like so many of your denominational groups, we sang out of the hymnal. And so as more and more younger groups are coming into the churches through church camp, through evangelistic campaigns, there's an influx of interest in doing something new, whether it's actual new music or discovering new ways of singing old music. It begins to come into the church, sort of paralleling some of the things that you see in the Jesus movement in the late 60s and the early 70s. Maybe that new stuff manifested itself as singing more of the gospel hymns, gospel songs initially. Maybe it was informal appropriation of Stamps Baxter songs into what had largely been, we only sing hymns. Maybe it was something like that. As the Jesus movement begins to have more and more influence as it grows, especially in and around Nashville, which was an important hub and continues to be an important hub for Christian music. There are choruses, there are short scripture songs that begin to come in. Every one of us in this session, I would bet, have been tagged in a Facebook post where someone decides that they're gonna throw this out. You've probably seen this picture. So what do you do for a living? And they paint a picture of the worship leader and 7 times 7-Eleven songs, saying, I write modern worship choruses. Well, they use that in a derogatory term, but in the context of the Jesus movement, these songs that have become known in some circles as 7-Eleven songs were intended to be simple songs that sounded a profound theological or straight from scriptural message. In a lot of instances, that's how some of these songs began. Now, sure, there are some of those duds out there that are thin theologically and thin musically, and so yeah, they have earned that moniker that's thrown out there. But in the context of the Jesus movement, it was really rooted in a desire to have profound theology and to sing scripture. And so that happens, And I say all of that to say that there was a church in Nashville, the Belmont Church of Christ. And now it's just known as Belmont Church. But out of the Belmont Church of Christ came something called the Koinonia Bookstore, and really some of the beginnings of contemporary Christian movement, contemporary Christian music movement. Amy Grant, Michael W. Smith, Brown Bannister, Chris Christian, all got their start out of that circumstance in a church that was a cappella, trying to find new things to introduce in worship to spice it up. Let me play the first of a clip to share with you. And this takes one of the oldest hymns, and I'm just going to play about a minute and a half of this. And one of the simplest things that we can do, and maybe I've not traced this, but maybe the practice of singing "Holy, Holy, Holy" and adding a voice part each time started at a place like Belmont, where there were people who just wanted to spice things up. Well, let's sing unison one verse, and let's add the altos on the second verse. Just listen to a little bit of this. There's always one alto who doesn't get the memo. But you could see how something as simple as that, as with a hymn that we all sing in some form or fashion, becomes instantly fresh and renewed by just saying, let's add a voice part each time. And it grows and becomes something incredibly powerful. Well, I've spent too much time talking through our history, but maybe it was a move from taking hymns and doing something like that to doing echo songs between men and women, or spirituals, or Seek Ye First, which had that soprano descant on it. But all of these things are catching fire, and new music is coming in, and churches are doing new things and new practices. And with new music comes all kinds of new opportunities. I'm going to move really quickly through some of these songs that have sort of been turning point songs in our history, and I'm going to let Shane and Matt and Randy talk about a little bit about these. I want to begin with a song by Don Thomas. This song was actually written in 1979, but it found its way into our churches in the early 90s. So I'm going to play this. Randy, why don't you talk to us a little bit about this song and how powerful it can be.
Thou, O Lord, art a shield about me. You're my glory. You're the lifter of my head. Thou
DJ and Shane and I have all been involved with a ministry called the Zoe Group. And the Zoe Group was established to provide contemporary music resources for a cappella churches. And we've done about 21 recordings. This was from the very first one in 1997. And the first time I heard it, I thought, oh, that's so simple. There's just nothing much to it. We recorded it and I kind of forgot about it. And a few months later, after the project had come out, I was leading worship at a thing in Indianapolis. And during the sound check, the team said, hey, can we sing Shield About Me? And I thought, oh, okay, well, if you want to. And there's something that happens in a cappella music that's transcendent. When people are singing together and it's done well, there's something about it that's unique to any other form of musical expression. And as we sang Shield About Me, it was the singing of it that made me realize, oh, this is the magic. It had totally eluded me up until that point. But singing it with a group of singers, you know, starting with that trio at the beginning, the SAT trio, and then when the bass come in and the chorus, there's just something emotionally that happens with that piece that I think is part of the magic of a cappella worship.
Absolutely. The next one, this is a song, again, this came out of Nashville. Rob Still, at the time he wrote this song, was the worship leader at Belmont Church, if I'm remembering correctly. And this is a song called A New Anointing. I'm going to play a little part of this original here. And this is one of those songs that, again, began instrumentally, but back in the early days of worship leader song discovery, before the original instrumental version went out to a broader audience, the a cappella recording actually was included on worship leader song discovery. But this is the original version of Rob Still's A New Anointing.
That the sons and daughters of the King of Glory may arise and shine.
The drummer's working hard.
Sons and daughters of the
Bass
King
player.
of Glory may arise and shine. We declare this is the day, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice, I will rejoice, I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. In the beginning, God created.
Randy, what did you hear when they came to you and said, can we get this arranged for our next recording?
To be honest, this is one of the songs that when I heard it, I thought, yeah, that will never work a cappella. And I was totally wrong.
Here's a little clip of the
put together a
beginning.
great arrangement of it.
Every son and daughter.
This is the season for a new anointing.
Same key as the original.
This is the season for a fresh outpouring. That the sons and daughters of the King of Glory may arise and shine. That the sons and daughters of the King of Glory may arise and shine as we declare, this is the day, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice, I will rejoice.
I told these two guys the other day, I remember where I was sitting in chapel at Abilene Christian University in the spring of fall of 2001, late fall, maybe early spring of 2002, when I heard this song. This was a song that was a turning point song for a lot of churches of Christ, because it was unlike anything we'd ever heard before. And the energy of it, Randy, you were there. I mean, you were involved in it.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I could not personally picture it being done a cappella. But when I heard that arrangement, I realized, oh yeah, that'll work. And sure enough, today it's one of the most popular a cappella songs in the Churches of Christ.
And one of the things that we continually notice when you sing a song a cappella, it's the same song, but it sounds and it's transformed into a completely different living, breathing piece that it's transformed. It's shorter, it's more compact, but there's still a driving energy about it, and it's just that song was a gift. And we talk about anointed songs and songs that were powerful. I'm not even going to play the original of Matt Redman's "Blessed Be Your Name," but this song was another turning point song. Shane, I think you were saying when we were talking about this song as well as another Matt Redman song, "You Never Let Go," songs that have a limited harmonic vocab, in the beginning with words that are really fast, and you think, geez, how's this going to work a cappella?
Yeah, the beauty in these two songs, "Blessed Be Your Name" and "You Never Let Go," is just in how the arrangement works. There's I don't know that we'll get to hear it when we play "Blessed Be Your Name," but we pair the chorus with the bridge, with the guys on the chorus and the ladies singing the bridge at the same time, because those chord progressions match each time, and you can do that. Same with "You Never Let Go" of the point counterpoint. Guy,
pull
girl.
up that little clip.
When the sun's shining down on me, when the world
That's verse 2.
all as
Going.
it should be. Of the Lord, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name.
Here comes the bridge.
Take away.
Go a little bit farther there,
Give
DJ.
and take away your name.
Here we go.
Give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name.
Instant hit.
Yeah.
Instant
So
hit.
if you're looking for hints on how to incorporate a cappella when you're not used to it, those kinds of things where you've got the guys singing this one melody that they know really well, the ladies singing this other melody they know really well, and when they fit together like that, it just creates a beautiful moment.
Yeah, that counterpoint is just amazing. Every now and then, you come across, songs more recently, and we're gonna fly through some of this. And let me go ahead and say this, because I want to get to Q&A here in just a second. As we think about sort of all of these things, churches love to split up singing, and I see the two questions that have come in here. And for someone who's not a music reader, and for someone who's not used to singing parts, you say, well, how in the world are we ever going to get there? And so I'd like to offer another example of a song that begins with one voice, and that adds a part each time. This is one that Randy wrote, and it's based on the Song of Mary. So this is one that can be used for the Christmas and Advent season, but it also finds a home throughout the rest of the church year. And finding ways to begin by, let's all sing one part and then let's add a part each time, and some things that's simple enough to teach with rote. Give your people, a little credit in that when you strip all the instruments away, and there are things that they can begin with. Maybe it's a hymn that you've sung all your life, like Holy, 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 and you begin with that. But as you progress through, sort of as we've progressed in Churches of Christ, these really simple songs through more harmonically advanced or complex pieces, it takes time and practice. But this is a song that Randy wrote called the Magnificat, and I'm just going to let it play for a minute.
My soul magnifies the Lord, my spirit rejoices rejoices in God. My Savior, my soul magnifies the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God. My soul
Glory be to God the Father, and glory be to God the Son. Glory be to God the Spirit.
My spirit
Glory
rejoices
be
in
to God.
My soul magnifies the Lord.
You'll notice that we are playing musical notation here. There are still a fair amount of churches that have people who are contour music readers and that they follow the shape of the line, whether they're reading, oh, well, that note on the first line is an E, or whether they're reading it with shape notes as do. They're still following the contour of the line, which helps them learn. And so a lot of churches project music notation to help their churches learn these songs, or they may use it in teaching settings or for any number of purposes. But this is one of those songs that has, again, caught on with great popularity because it is simple, because it is scriptural, and it's memorable. And all of those things combine to make a song that has a lasting impact. Let me talk just real quickly. We'll talk through a couple of other trends, and then I'm going to just barrage you with resources. One of the things we've talked about is a trend we see in songs that start on something other than the one chord. We talked about, we see whether it's a couple of Getty tunes like The Power of the Cross or Speak, O Lord, or the Hillsong tune Touch the Sky. That's one of those songs that didn't work a cappella like some thought it would. But those songs that don't begin on one sometimes have to have a little more finagling from an arranging standpoint to make them work for churches. And not every song is going to follow the 1-4-5-1 historical chord pattern. And so we do see that happen from time to time. But then every now and then you'll come across a modern hymn like "Oh Praise the Name" that it's like it was written in the 19th century. It's written in hymnic form, and it's something that you can immediately pick up and sing because you've been singing simple hymns all your life. Let me talk about just one more thing. When you're planning worship in an instrumental context, sometimes you're thinking, okay, how are we going to use our 60, 75 minutes? And you think, okay, if each of these songs is 5, 6, 7 minutes long, we're only going to get to do 3 or 4 songs. When you are singing a cappella, you've cut your song length in half. And so you have a wider berth of time that you can sing more and sing more diverse styles, because the similar nature that exists between songs that are written in 4-part harmony means that you can go from an "Oh Praise the Name" to "For the Beauty of the Earth" or anything like that stylistically very easily. It's not like if you're with your band and you can go, without a break from a reggae song to a bluegrass without taking your congregation through the whiplash phase, but in an a cappella context, you can bring in a global Ateze piece. You can bring in a Donnie McClurkin gospel song, "Only You Are Holy," or "Withholding Nothing," or "I Call You Faithful," or any other number of things. And this mixture of genres combined with the fact that songs are shorter, and you can take your people, your worshipers on a musical journey through any number of styles. There's so much to say, it's hard to fit anything into, 50 minutes of conversation. Randy Shane, I see you're unmuted. Give us a summative thought on something you've learned from from our experience.
Well, I was just responding to one of the questions about
I saw that.
will the parts be intimidating, and will it cause some people not to sing? And we haven't mentioned, I don't think, that typically in the Churches of Christ we'll have a praise team, a vocal team of anywhere from 4 to 8 to 12 singers who will sing the 4-part arrangements. And so they sort of model the harmonies. People can either listen to their part as it's being sung by the praise team, or a lot of our people just sing the melodies like they would if they were singing a hymn in a church that had an organ or a band or whatever. And as you can see from what we've just done, sometimes we'll project the music as well. So people who've sung in choir or who've had any musical background, even if they can't, as DJ said, follow the notes, they can sort of follow the picture and know when to sing higher or when to, but having that additional group to model and support the harmony is a really important thing.
And it gives somebody a face to sing along with and a voice to hear. And it's been one of the great things that encourages participation across the board.
And I was thinking, Shane, you've worked a lot with the Praise and Harmony projects, and they have some teaching tools to help congregations learn the part. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the Acapella Company puts out Praise and Harmony. There we go at the bottom there, praiseandharmony.com and praiseandharmony.tv. And one of the unique things they'll publish a CD of 25 acapella arrangements of songs, but then there's a second CD, and of course these are available in download as well. I know I'm speaking an old language when I say CD, but they'll produce a second one that has each part somewhat isolated. So for the track, you'll hear soprano and tenor on the left side, and you'll hear alto and bass, the lower voices, on the right side. And so that allows people that want to invest the time to be able to listen and hear their part and learn it by ear. That's one of the things is there are people that read music, yes, but even the people that read music learn by ear as well. That's been my experience. And so anytime we can let people hear what it sounds like, they will pick it up that much quicker.
Yeah, I was seeing if I had one of those that I could just click on really quickly. Here, this is just a quick example, if it will play.
I know that my Redeemer lives and ever prays.
One voice per part, isolated, so you can hear your part to learn it or sing along with, or maybe churches that don't have sound systems or adequate singers or mics. This might be the praise team that they play through their system for the church to sing along with. So here's what I would like to ask all of you participants to do. Send an email to djbulls@mac.com, and I'm going to send you a packet of arrangements, a bibliography and list of all these wonderful links where you can find hymns projected in 4-part voicings, new resources, hymnals. Maybe it's some books that have some things that are helpful on singing a cappella. There's Randy's book, How Hard Can It Be? That incorporates a lot of helpful principles for singing a cappella. Some of you may know the name Dave Williamson, who was a really important voice in church music, who died a few years ago. But in his book, God's Singers, there are some helpful principles for those of you who sing, whether it's with choirs or praise teams, on how to continually foster participation in your churches. There's so much to be said. It's 12:02, so I want to thank you all for being a part of our presentation, and I hope it's helpful to you, and grace and peace to you all from wherever you are to wherever you're headed. Have a blessed, what's today? Wednesday? It's my 14th wedding anniversary today, and I did remember that. So thanks for being here.